Hello and welcome to the livecast. I'm Everett O'Keefe from Ignite Press, and I am here today to share with you really a fantastic author and her story. Gigi is a seasoned coach. She is a perfectionist turned good enougher, which is fantastic. And she has really a heart. Um, uh, a very touching story to share about how she moved from being a just diehard perfectionist into someone that understands when that good enough is often better than perfection. And so she's going to bring her story here in just a second. I want to share with you that her book, Bloom Beyond Perfection, is available today. And it is available actually there's a Kindle special, 99 cents on Amazon. You can pick it up there for 99 cents. And even if you don't read Kindle, by the way, Kindle versions are readable on every smartphone, every tablet, every computer, and then, of course, all Kindle devices. And so I would encourage you to pick that up. The paperback is also for sale. And trust me, you can make no mistake by buying this book. So let's do this. Gigi, let's bring you on. And here you are. Gigi, how are you doing today?
Great.
Okay, terrific. I would love for you to share with everybody. Well, first, I know you're really excited because today's your book launch, right? Big
D-
day,
Definitely.
absolutely. And I think you've got a brand new stack of books that Amazon dropped in your lap in honor of today, right?
Yes, I did. And that was so exciting to be not only opening my first book that you were so kind to send so I could see what it looked in print, but when I got my author's copies, because there are some family friends that are like, I want a signed copy. So I said, buy the Kindle and you can still get that too.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So, Gigi, tell us your story. Tell us how you went from crazy perfectionist to a good enougher. Actually, you had a better phrase than that. But anyway, tell us your story.
Sure. Well, basically, about 30 years ago, I didn't realize as much what a perfectionist I was. And at the time, I was going through life, enjoying what I was doing, and just knew I had this discontent that came with me as things went on. But I thought perfect. I mean, as I got older and I started to realize I was more of a perfectionist, I thought that's okay. It makes me so organized. It makes me get things done. I've got all this go go energy. And then I started to find the downside of it. And one of the things that really came to light was I was a person who loved school. I thought school was the end all. If you could have paid me to go to school for the rest of my life. And what I found is that in school we get this attitude and this motto that you work hard, you do well, and you're rewarded. So that was perfect. And that's where I started to see some of these perfectionist things. But I was like, okay, so I'm a high achiever. I'm working well. I'm doing well, and I'm being rewarded. It's all great. And then I started to see in business how it wasn't always that way, and how sometimes just personality conflicts and things get in your way. And as I was going through this and just experiencing life and starting to see this discord with perfectionism, at the same time, I was also a mother of a young child. And just to give you a little bit about my daughter, because she is essential to my story, when I was pregnant with my daughter, my husband, he was one of seven, and he had five sisters, and they all had this really thin hair. And he had this amazing personality. And I was just like, okay. So I'm pregnant, and I'm like, mommy's hair. As you can see, I have lovely, gorgeous hair, and daddy's personality. Because I was the perfectionist. I was always the one getting things done, but I was also very opinionated and sometimes would butt heads. Well, my daughter came out, lovely child, but however, she did not get mommy's hair. Very disappointing to her and to me. I didn't get to have much fun playing with it. And at the same time, she was just like me. So we spent the next years just butting heads, and she really was one of my best teachers. And I talk in the book about how there are people in your life that really just try you to the point of you're going to learn or you're going to die. And that was what she was. Um, so I really just went through and I started to see how things in her life, she was starting to have some struggles in school, and she was really having some emotional issues. And we saw that there was a potential for mental illness. And that just made me want to pull back a little bit from motherhood, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I help her? And at the same time, I felt like I must have done something wrong. I mean, here I had this beautiful young child. She was the type, she decided when she was about 4 years old that she wanted to ice skate. And it was too cold out. We lived in the Midwest. And so she took out this 5 pound bucket of butter and she smeared it all over my hardwood floor. Now, I was upstairs doing the laundry, unbeknownst to all of this. Her brother and her, who was about one at the time, are having a ball just going around in this butter. So, this is my daughter. She was always my creative one, always my one testing me. I come down and I can tell you, I scraped butter for days off of the floor. But her brother thought she was the best, and she had the best ice skating day ever. So we started seeing these mental illnesses and things, and we didn't know what to do. And because of the stigma of it and my energy, I just wanted to protect her. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want things to go awry. And so I just sort of like put a cocoon around her, tried to protect her, get her the best medical professions. But as we saw as things went on, she really struggled with suicide and suicide ideation. And I just didn't know how to help her. And I just kept plowing into my work. And the next thing I know it, I was having issues myself with depression, anxiety. And I actually um, got into it with my daughter one day over a post that she wrote that was so beautiful. And yet at the time, I didn't realize that what she was trying to do was help others. And in that post, she talked about me. And it was a post that she wrote on the National Suicide Prevention Day. And she looped me into it. And I was so upset with her because I was like, oh my gosh, because what I wasn't willing to share with people is I had allowed my perfectionism to overcome me, and I did not get help at a time when I needed help. And so I had once attempted my life. So my book starts out with that story about how perfectionism, doing things like comparing, wearing, worrying about your image, how they can get in the way. And I was what I was called in a perfectionistic trap, because I basically believed that perfection equals happiness. And so I wasn't happy because I wasn't being perfect. And the reason things were happening with my daughter was I did something wrong. So this book started out as a story of redemption, and it started out as a story to say thank you to my daughter for opening my eyes, for wanting me to share my story about my own suicide, how I let perfection go wrong, and also about her. And we did lose her about 6 years ago to suicide, but she still lives in all of us because she makes us want to make a difference and to go out there and share things. That was a
Uh,
lot, I know.
wow. Uh, you know, I remember when we first had a conversation about your book, and you had shared a bit about this story and how that perfectionism that you had, that she also had, and that feeling of just trying to measure up to everything. Um, you almost named your book The Perfection Trap. I remember we had that we talked about that, and if you would describe for us a little bit what the perfection trap looks like.
What I found that the perfection trap was is, again, going back to this idea that if things are perfect, and when I talk about perfect, I mean as if we can live perfect, we can look perfect, act perfect, be perfect, we can basically avoid any kind of blame, shame, or judgment. So if we do everything right, mommy's going to be happy. If we do everything right, the teachers will be happy, work will be happy, kids will be happy. And all you find yourself doing is people pleasing and trying to do everything right. Of course, I don't know about you, but right sometimes changes as you're going along life. You know, what was right yesterday might not be right tomorrow. And so you're this in this constant thing that you're thinking, I'm this hamster wheel, and you're trying to get out of it. And I think perfection also has a way of giving you this idea that I achieve, therefore I am. So when you're not doing something, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not achieving. So I'm a nobody. And so it's this constant go, go, go energy. The only thing is that we're not made to go, go, go. We're not energizer bunnies. We are people. And I love how they always talk about, about the gift is truly the present, present, also a present, but being in the now. And that is not something the average perfectionist does well. It's all we can do so many things and accomplish, but what is perfectionism? It's worrying about the past and looking at it and analyzing it, and it's worrying about the future and looking at it and analyzing it and worrying about it, but it's not being present. And that's what I really find that the good enough comes into play is the more that I can just accept things as good enough, get rid of the shoulding, the coulding, the woulding on myself, and just get rid of also those what ifs. I'm able to be in the present. I'm able to love more. I'm able to explore more. And so, how I, in my book, explain my story, I also put a little education because I told you I love school. So, I got to give you a little bit of that. But the beauty of it, where it all comes together, is actually in the Camino. When I did this about 3 years ago, I walked the Camino de Santiago. And what's so funny is that this is actually a picture of me. It was not the way we envisioned the book in the beginning, in the sense of that's what would be the cover, but this is me. And being the perfectionist that I am, I find the funniest part is that I have mud all over me. And that's because, and I tell the story, if you go to chapter 15, it tells the story about how I'm trying to go down this hill and migrate through all this terrain and it's unlevel, and I'm trying to figure out how I can not step in the mud. And in not stepping in the mud, I fall plop face forward in the mud. And my beautiful backpack here, which is this beautiful magenta, now becomes this muddy backpack. But there's a someone with us, and he laughs and he says, "Well, now you look very rugged. You look official." So it's how I make official. But in my book, what I do is with the Camino is that there's 5 essential things that every person, when they go on adventure, needs. They need a walking stick, they need a backpack, they need their walking shoes, some bandages, and what I love the best, those yellow arrows, those signs in life of where to go. And that's how I take my information from what I've learned about perfectionism and help people also get to that good enough place. Get to that place where they're enjoying life and they're having fun. And sometimes they're falling in the mud and laughing.
So I love that story because in your effort to be perfect, you fell in the mud, right? You're
Exactly.
trying to
Isn't
avoid
that
the
how we
mud.
always get it? Mud on our face when we're trying to do the right thing?
Yeah, and it's so where you probably would have just gotten mud on your shoes, you got mud all over because you couldn't tolerate
Coated in it.
the mud,
And
right?
even took a picture and showed it to the world.
I love it. And it was funny because I remember in the art development, we didn't recognize immediately that there was mud on the back there. And that kind of came out later. It was like, oh, that's so funny. Um, Early on, when I first started my marketing business, I had a client tell me that done is better than perfect. And at first, I didn't agree. I thought, well, wait a minute. We're supposed to be doing high quality work. We're supposed to be doing the best we can. Why would you settle for anything less than perfect? And of course, the lesson was perfect doesn't exist, and and many times done really is better than spending crazy amounts of time and stress and everything like that trying to create this elusive perfection. And so it was a really important lesson for me. And since then, I've heard it expressed better, in different ways. Like perfection is the enemy of the good. um, and from the standpoint of, if you're continually striving to make something perfect, you will never accomplish the good things that could happen if you weren't so freaked out trying to make this one thing perfect, something along those lines. And I think I had heard that one from Pam Hendrickson, and I'm grateful for her for that. So you brought up the Camino, and Camino de Santiago in Spain, and not everyone here knows what that is. Can you share what that is, and really what that journey meant to you?
The Camino de Santiago is something that many people do. It started out years ago as a spiritual journey. It is supposed to be the walk of Saint Joseph. And I will say that originated around the Catholicism and people that believed in the apostles and I'm sorry, not Saint Joseph, Saint James. See, um, anyway, so they were walking basically the voyage. And there's even a famous movie called The Way with Martin Sheen. So if anybody wants to see a little bit more about the Camino, and the nice thing about the Camino is Santiago is a town in Spain, and there are very many different ways to get to it. And one of the things that they use is a shell, which I actually have a picture here. And one of the reasons they show the shell and they represent that as for Santiago and the walk of it is because again there's very many ways to get there, and a lot of people do it for spiritual reasons. There are people that go through France and you have to go through the mountains, and so they're doing it for also endurance, time to unplug, get away. It was something that I heard and I just thought, wow, what a way to do something. And I felt like if I walked the Camino, that maybe it would bring me closer to my daughter. And I had heard about it only a few months after I'd lost her. And what was made this journey really special for someone like me is I am not a enthusiast when it comes to working out. I don't like to sweat, and my naturally light colored skin is naturally light colored because I avoid sun at all costs. I lived 15 years out in the California area, and I still took vitamin D because I didn't get enough because I wouldn't go in the sun. So here I am for 10 days out in the sun. I walked 172 miles with my sister in law, which averaged about 17 miles a day. And I will say I did not probably train as well as I could have. But I do know now that if I would have trained, I probably wouldn't have done the walk because I would have been like, this is not fun. But it was great. We got to experience so much and see. We did the coastal route. So we were along the coast for about 2 days, beautiful ocean. And then the next 2 days we spent on cobblestones. And I remember reading in, a Facebook post, someone saying how their feet felt like they were meat cleavers. And I'm thinking, oh, they just didn't get the right shoes. This Camino can't be that bad. Well, by the second day on these cobblestones, next to the wall, because the cobblestones in between would have sand, we would walk like almost like hugging the wall so that we could like walk on a little bit more sand because the wind had put the sand just to get that extra little cushion. Because the lady on Facebook did not lie. It was like cleavers to your feet, meat cleavers. And so I was so glad when we finally got to some level terrain when we got into Spain. But what was really beautiful about it is I spent basically 10 days unplugged, really just with music that I had on my iPod and just this beautiful environment and meeting great people along the way and just talking about our journey. And it was just such an eye-opening experience. And I also found that some of, like I said, the essentials that I needed on the Camino, like the walking stick. As a perfectionist, I walked probably 7 days carrying the stick either in my backpack or twirling it. I was trying to be the best baton twirler, but to use it, no way. A perfectionist would never use a walking stick. That would mean I'd have to admit I wasn't perfect and I needed help. That's what I talk about in the book, on how many of us need to lean on people, to ask people for help, to say yes when people say, can I help you? Because as perfectionists, it's very common for us to Oh no, I've got it. Don't worry, I can do it all. You can't do it all. It takes a village to do everything. And if there's people there to help you, say yes. And so the other thing I found is, and I talk about in my book, is the backpack. Oh my gosh, when I started out, the things I had in my backpack, and it was just a day pack. I did it what I called the 50-year style of walking the Camino. I had a transporter as a gift for my 50th birthday. I paid extra money and had somebody take my luggage from hotel to hotel. So I didn't do the youth hostels. I did stay in some nice hotels, but I had this day pack filled 10 pounds of stuff that by the end of the thing, I realized I don't need all this stuff. Well, in life, how many of us have our backpacks filled with the shoulding and the what ifs and the things that are just loading us down, basically putting rocks in our backpack? And that's what I talk about in the book is how you can start unpacking that stuff and how we are all 100% worthy. Even if you sleep all day, you're still 100% worthy. It is not you achieve and you already are.
Mm.
And that's the beauty of it. And that's what I wanted to share with people is that no matter what your perfectionist tendencies, because I think it's very common and many of us do have them, that it is something to embrace and to find your superpowers, how it makes you stronger. For example, I find with my perfectionism, I love the fact that I'm organized and on top of things and a planner. But I've also had to learn how to go with it. Recently, I had a honeymoon, and American Airlines didn't get us from one place to another place, and I missed my cruise. I learned very quickly how to make lemonade out of lemons. That's the beauty of it. So all the planning you can do, sometimes you get thrown a wrench, and what are you going to do with it? And that's what I want to share in my book is how you can basically learn how to find the lemonade when there's sometimes just a whole bunch of lemons.
Okay. Wow. I'm so sorry you guys missed your cruise. I will tell you,
It'll make the next one better.
I've been there too. Um, I got stuck in Las Vegas with on the way to Miami for a cruise that we had won that we were going to go on for free, and they had a mechanical issue and they didn't bother to tell us the plane wasn't going to fly anywhere until it was too late for us to make that connection. And
Exactly. That's what ours was too. And it happens. And it was one of those things that we learned we had a great time. We spent a week in Florida. We didn't rush back to Chicago, I will admit, because it was a little we looked at the weather. We were coming from Mexico, in the 80s. I think it was in the 40s and raining. Nah, let's go to Florida. We had a great time in Florida and we're just looking forward to that cruise in the future. But I
yeah,
think that if I wouldn't have gone through some of the lessons and learned some of the things that I talk about here in the book, I probably could have sat there for a while and just cried, and I would have missed it all, versus just like, okay, just sort of brush off the mud, figure it all out, and have fun. And we did.
you as you point out, you could have spent the next week shooting on yourselves or or coulding or whatever and missed the enjoyment of that time instead. And I'm glad you brought up travel because quite honestly there's nothing like travel to humble you and make us realize that we're not in control and that we just have to kind of roll with things, right? There's nothing like travel to do that. Now, Chris asked a question. Let me put it up here
Okay.
and go here. So she asks, can you tell us about the white butterfly? And I think what she's referring to is there's a little white butterfly on your book
Yes.
cover here. Tell us about that.
So, I found just shortly after my daughter passed away, I started seeing these butterflies, and she was always a little girl who loved butterflies. We actually, when she was in kindergarten, got one of those butterfly, almost like a farm, sort of like an ant farm, but it was for a butterfly, and you'd get it and it would go into its cocoon, and then you had to let it go. And I did never thought she was going to stop crying because we had to let her butterfly go, and we had to explain to her that it was better and it was going to be happier. But I found that these butterflies, after she passed away, started to just be at places. I did an overnight walk in her honor in New York. And as I'm walking through Central Park, what do I see but little white butterflies? It was like her way of just saying, I'm with you, mom. And when I was on the Camino a couple of times as we're going, I see these little white butterflies. And I even had the most beautiful experience that I haven't even had a chance to share with you, Everett. But on the day that I recently got remarried, I kept looking for my daughter and didn't see any signs of her and thought, okay, she just couldn't, quote unquote, be there that day. And then we went to our hotel room, which was in downtown Chicago off a Navy Pier. And I'm on the seventh floor and I'm looking out the window. And what do I see but a butterfly? Now, this had to be about 8 o'clock at night. It was just starting to be dusk. And I'm like, I didn't even know butterflies fly that high. And of course, I just never thought about it because we always see them more at a lower level. But here's this butterfly, and it must have flown back and forward in front of me for at least a good 5 to 10 minutes. And it was just like, it was her way of saying, I'm here. So that's what
Incredible.
that little butterfly, I just wanted that little extra tribute to her and thank her for always being there for me.
That is incredible. Well, I want to remind everybody that Gigi's book is available. You can pick it up today on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. If you pick up the Kindle, it's at 99 cents, and that's a launch day special that will be going away shortly. So I definitely want to encourage you to pick up the book. So Gigi, we have just a minute or two left here on the live cast. And I want to ask you, is there anything else that you would like to share with the viewers here before we sign off?
I think that my most important thing is to really just know that you are enough, that you are perfect the way you are. You don't need to try to strive to be perfect. And that, you know, I find that my stories in this book are basically just to help anybody. I want to make a difference. My daughter, one of the last things she said, she did not leave a letter. However, we found some writings of hers, and one of them is go out there and make a difference, save a life. And that's what I want to do. And so, in any way, if this helps people, and that's why I really encourage people, especially at the 99-cent price, go out there. Buy this for a loved one. It has some great stories in it, stories of things I learned on the Camino, my story in it. I know that the people that have read it, really, it's an easy read. Even the education part, which is a little bit dry, I think you'll enjoy. And what I've also tried to do is incorporate more of a workbook type style into it, that there are thoughtful questions so that as you're going through this, you're not just reading my story, but you're able to apply it. Like, what times in your life have you sort of avoided the mud and then fell in the mud? Whereas if you just would have embraced a little bit of dirt, the things that could have happened better. So I really try to encourage that. And that's the message I want to leave. And just thank not only to her, but I also have a son. And thank you to him because he's been with me through this journey and he is the light of my life. And I'm so grateful for both of them.
Well, Gigi, congratulations on your book being out. Congratulations on your marriage, the
Thank
wedding,
you.
and just really excited for you with that as well. So, remind everybody they can pick up the book again, 99 cents on Amazon, and please do that, yeah, today. So, with that, we will take us out. Hope everything that you've enjoyed this interview. And Gigi, I forgot to ask you, but if people wanted to reach you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yes, you can find me, and it talks about it in the book at Gigi at bloombeyondperfection.com. That's probably the easiest way. And you can go email me there. You can also go to bloombeyondperfection.com. That will take you over actually to Embrace the Hope, which is the name of my company. And that has information not only about the book, about if you'd like to work with me. I'm also launching a book study around the book to just help those people that really want to apply this information and take it beyond just reading it and consuming it. Because, like I said, I want this to help people, not just be about me.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much, Gigi. It's been a delight to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's